Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. And over the weekend, I went with my family to go see The Boogeyman. Now, with this being a short story from Stephen King, this is something that honestly I didn't know what to expect because Stephen King movies, they're kind of a mixed bag. They're either really good or they're really bad. You kind of never know what you're getting into. And so I went with my family to go see the Boogeyman. And one of the things that I actually had that gave me high hopes was the fact that it was rated PG-13. Now, generally, for some people, when they hear PG-13, that means that, oh man, you're restricted on what you can do since you don't have that R rating. But for me, for anyone that has watched these reviews, they know that I really like uh, suspense. That I'm not big on blood and guts. Showing horror elements for the sake of showing something. That's not really why I watch horror movies. Because to me, nothing is more terrifying than your own imagination. You know, letting your imagination fill in the blanks is what makes horror movies that much more intense and terrifying. And so that's why I've always been big on less is more. And in regards to the Boogeyman, I mean, they definitely play to that aspect where less is more. You don't really see what's going on. You don't really see the creature until near the end of the movie. And I really appreciate that. That being said, this horror movie suffers from a lot of tropes that are typical with a lot of horror movies. And I guess I should, say not just horror in general, but just movies in general. So when you watch the trailer for this movie, the trailer does a good job letting you know that, hey, this family is dealing with this paranormal creature that, you don't know what it is, only that it poses a danger. Well, when the movie starts, you end up realizing that the family they've suffered from a loss. The kids, lost their mom. The husband lost his wife due to a car accident. And generally, when movies start that way, it's kind of like getting sympathy for characters. It just feels kind of cheap. It's like we don't want to go through a big backstory. We don't really want to take the time to develop these characters. We just want to let you know that they suffered a really big loss in their life. So, please feel sympathy, connect with them, because we're not going to take any extra time to have you connect with them, if that makes any sense. So right away, so you're dealing with that. They're dealing with the loss, and the husband, the psychiatrist, ends up, stumbling upon this guy who is suffering from, this entity that haunted his family, that killed his kids, and he has now transferred that creature to the psychiatrist family, and it starts haunting them. What kind of drives me nuts is how in certain horror movies there's the lack of common sense. Now, I'm all for understanding that there are just elements that aren't just going to add up. It's like you got to have a certain degree of common sense not really adding up, in order for these characters to get in danger. But it ends up getting to the point to where you're seeing that all throughout the movie. Like the little girl in the movie is terrified of the dark, absolutely terrified. And it gets to a point to where she's already encountered the creature on more than one occasion, and there's a scene where she's playing video games in the dark. This is a little girl who is terrified of the dark, knows this creature exists in the dark, and yet she's playing video games in the dark. And then you got the older of the two, the older kid, the older girl, who has friends that she wants to lean on to help her out, but clearly, right off the bat, these are not good friends. They're not there for her, and it begs a question like, why is she hanging out with these people in the first place to begin with? The girl that's supposedly her best friend, you're told that she is her best friend, but you don't feel that. You don't feel any connection, because there's no time that's spent on these two. And another element, and this is probably the one that got under my skin, and probably it's just because I'm a dad myself, but there would be times when these two girls would be making loud noise at night, either together or because of the creature going on. There'd be all this racket and raised voices and all this noise, and the dad is nowhere to be found. I don't know if he secludes himself in an entire section of the house with the soundproof walls, but generally, if you hear a loud ruckus in your room or, your house, you're going to go inspect. And the fact that it was the kids doing that and not the dad, I'm just like, what the hell? It made no sense to me. And of course, as is typical in most films like these, as the kids tried to tell their dad that, oh, hey, look, there's this terrifying presence, that comes at you from the dark. Of course, he doesn't buy into it until he encounters it himself, which of course is at the end of the movie. And I'm not going to go into any other spoilers than that. I mean, it's typical. This is typical stuff that you can expect from movies like this, and they hit all those check marks. So, so I wasn't really a big fan of it, only because of just the sheer lack of common sense, the sheer lack of things that just, you know, of needing to tug on your heartstrings, you feel sorry for them because they lost a family member, and it's like, yeah, I mean that happens to all of us, but it's like, spend time building these characters up. Like, I don't need to feel a loss. I don't need to be told that they felt this massive loss to feel sorry for them. Let me connect with the characters. So I wasn't a big fan of it, but my daughter was. My daughter, who's 12 years old, she really liked it. And honestly, it really suits that PG-13 rating. I think this will be, a good movie for that young teenage demographic. So, so like I said, it was okay, but nothing to write home about. It certainly doesn't raise the bar. It doesn't take any risks. It doesn't really do anything new that you haven't seen 1,000 times over in other horror movies. So, other than that, take care, guys. Now, see you in the next one.